Welcome to the Untrapped Podcast, where we're motivated and inspired about success, small business, and personal development. And now, Keith Kalfas.
3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? This is Keith Kalfas with the Untrapped Podcast, coming at you from Mendota Heights, Minnesota. We are in Stanley Dirt Monkey Genetics living room right now, hanging out. We'll talk about that later. You can check that on my YouTube channel. But I'm next to, sitting down across from Caleb Auman from Auman Landscape. Him and his wife run breaching on $1 million landscaping business in Columbus, Ohio. And Caleb is an awesome mentor, and he's rising up as a leader in the green industry. And I was on Instagram like 2 days ago, and he's live. He's sitting in a truck waiting for some concrete or something to be delivered on an actual job site. He's got crews out working, a project manager, and all this stuff going on. And he's talking about efficiently running a landscaping business, and people are flowing in the comments asking all these really good, intelligent questions about like hiring, project management, measuring, bidding, all these questions that you would ask when you were in the first few years of your landscape business and you're reaching out for some mentorship. And Caleb is just literally spitting out golden nuggets left and right. I stopped everything that I was doing and I tuned in, and I was learning all these things. I was like, oh my God, this is really, really good. And he doesn't let his ego get in the way, and he just flows value because he's been through pain and suffering. He's had a business failure, and now he's back, climbing back top of his business, and he's crushing it, and now inspiring others to do the same. So what's up, Caleb?
Hey, Keith, man, it's awesome to be here, and thanks for the kind words. And like I was saying earlier, I've followed you for a long time, so to hear like a dude I've like followed and admired for such a long time to say that stuff is like really flattering. It's cool. So thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man, and thank you. Just talking to you for 5 minutes, it just became very apparent to me, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to dive right in and talk about hiring the right people, project management, taking your hands off your business a little bit so you're not stressed out trying to do 100 things at once to the point of breakdown. And how do you do that? And how do you get to the point where you can afford to do that? And I really like the saying, what got you here won't get you there. So let's dive right in.
Sure, man.
So you guys did what, 600,000 or 700,000 last year, you said?
Yeah, last year our sales were right at about 700. I think we hit 690 or 710, something like that. And we did that with 4 guys in the field, Britt and I in the office. Her and I did a little bit of work. I think her and I did maybe about $100,000 worth of work ourselves.
So Brittany, your wife, you guys run the business together.
Yeah, Brittany's my wife. She's owned the company for 10 years. She signs my paychecks, and essentially started the new company after I crashed my old one. And there's a whole long story there of me doing stupid with a capital S for about 10 years prior to that.
How old are you now?
37. I had to think about that for a second. That was funny.
And you guys are married and you have 3 kids?
Yep, married with 3 kids, and it's our sole income is the company, and we wouldn't have any. It's a crazy lifestyle, but we wouldn't have it either way.
Awesome. And I saw you guys on Instagram. You're about to hit 20,000 subscribers and followers on Instagram.
Yeah. So Instagram's my jam. I just love Instagram, and I've learned so much from other contractors that I admire on Instagram.
What's your tag so people can check you out?
It's Auman. It's at Auman Landscape LLC is our environment. My foreman has one. It's at Auman Landscape, but he doesn't put much on there.
So AUMAN.
Correct. Yeah. The spelling's crazy. Yeah. Auman. AUMAN. Yes, sir.
All right. Sweet. So stage 1 business, the guy's running around by himself in a pickup truck like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to do it all. He's getting home at dark, then trying to do paperwork. His books are a mess. He doesn't even know what his numbers are because he doesn't have time to do them. And the profit margins aren't to the point where he can hire. Stage 2, it's maybe you've got a couple guys working and you can leave the job site for a few hours to go sell. You're doing marketing. You've got some guys on payroll. Stage 3 is where you're out of the field and you've got guys now working and you're doing sales, marketing, running the business, and making sure that calendar stays full.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
I guess we're stage 3 at the moment. So yeah, Brittany and I will go out and do a little bit of like almost like emergencies. We've started another division of our company called Auman Environmental. And so it handles like stormwater management type work. So you'll see like retention ponds at like grocery stores and stuff like that or Lowe's. So we clean those out, or we put new big riprap in there, or fix broken pipes, or the drains in parking lots. We go fix those. So a store will notice a sinkhole and like they need pretty quick turnaround on that sinkhole repair. And so her and I usually jump in a truck, grab an excavator and run and take care of that. So that's kind of like her and I's like emergency response kind of deal. Otherwise, our other project manager, John, handles that stuff. If it's a little more scheduled out. So that's what her and I do. But primarily we're kind of, I think, vision casting is what I called it earlier. And I think it's a maybe that's common, I don't know. But her and I are trying to just keep the direction of the company the right way, keep our 4 guys that are in the field, because they consume a lot of work and a lot of materials. And so we've got to be more than ever diligent with like working on the business and not in it,
And you've got these guys out here, they're cutting lawns and edging and
we got out of lawn care about 6 years ago, I think. And
so you're doing hardscapes and patios and construction?
Yeah, that's the primary portion of our business at the moment is hardscape construction, landscape design. So paper patios, retaining walls, and then horticultural work, planting trees and shrubs and doing landscape installs, stuff like that. And then the other division of the company is more construction based. And we're working on getting that off the ground with our project manager there, and that's exciting. Sometimes like a breath of fresh air of starting something new or a new venture is really exciting, and it's cool because it's also diversifying us because it's deemed essential work too. So with this new new normal unquote, that we're going into, I think that kind of work is going to be, and we just want to diversify that way. Long story short, we want to. Kind of like Target was able to stay open during this whole pandemic thing because they carried some groceries. How fortunate them. I bet you they'll take a loss on that division of their company for the rest of the time just to be able to stay open during a pandemic or something, should these shutdowns, which are probably going to be the new normal, which I hate to say. So diversification of work and work styles is like pretty important to me. But trying at the same time, man, not to get caught up in that trap of like doing every style of work there is, because I used to do that too. I wouldn't turn anything down. I wouldn't say no to a freaking thing, man. I'd be up in a tree that I should not be in, on a ladder, topping out a tree to bring it down. Dude, I've done so much crazy dumb stuff in contracting and done it all the hard way and not made money and all that stuff. So it's maybe more typical than it is, but I'm not afraid to share it because I don't want guys to go down that same road that I did, or hopefully they don't, or at least they don't get hurt as hard as I did by losing their first company or whatever. So that's why I try to be as open as I can be. So here we are.
Thank you so much. So trying to do a million things at once. We do that because, I go deep, and Paul Jameson was making fun of me about this the other day. I mean,
Paul,
I love Paul, man. He
is a genuine heart of gold, dude.
So what's up, Paul? But your sympathetic nervous system takes over. It's the fight or flight response. It's the part of your brain that makes you survive. Just strictly the mammalian part of the brain.
Yeah.
And so you can't access the structure and strategy and actually calm the fuck down for a few minutes and take a look at what are we going to do to strategize for this thing long term? Yeah. What are the right decisions to make? What is my fucking man-hour rate? What are my numbers? What are my books? And when people would say things like that to me, like, what do you mean you don't have QuickBooks and you're not tracking every penny? How? And it would be like almost I'd take on all this shame when they would say that. And it's because, dude, I wasn't even charging enough to even afford the time to do that. I was just trying to keep the lights on and keep the bills paid. So can you talk about the transition from going to that? How do you get out of that and get to the next step where you start putting some structure and systems in your business?
Sure. A huge part of it for me early on in the business, and I still struggle with it to some extent now, but like I heard you say at your awesome presentation at Launchpreneur last winter, or was it still 2020 when that went on, or was that 2019? Anyways, yeah, 19, duh. But you saying, you got to know your worth, and I was way underselling our skills, way underselling our ethics, because we were, and what I mean by that is we were an ethical company. We were good and honest, and we didn't put a dollar value on that of selling what we were worth. And so part of it was a self-respect issue, possibly, of not selling our company and our services for what it's worth. And so you then get in that issue of you start to get behind on the 8 ball, get behind the 8 ball of it starts to become tough to get ahead of taking the time to run your numbers and figure out. And I would run numbers sometimes back in my first company, and they'd be ugly of oh God, we hit $25 a man hour there. That's not good. And I would kind of always kick can down the road. Okay, next month's going to be better. We'll price our work for what I know this job is going to take. I'm going to put that number on it because I know that's what it's going to take to hit $60 a man hour or whatever. And it just didn't materialize for so long.
Why not?
Fear. And honestly, I'd probably, really, because I guess we're just going to be I'll be really open here of I just don't know if it's weird because I didn't see it as this at the time, but thinking that customer will never pay that for the work, and I just really didn't even realize, but I didn't respect my own time enough to charge enough to run a business off of it. Greg Whitstock said something. He's
the pond guy.
Oh gosh, man. He's
Greg's
a driven dude. Yeah, he is. And he's built a huge, amazing company. And one of the greatest things I heard him say was like, never place your value of $1 against your client's value of $1 or the value of a project. Just because this patio, I can build a patio, and like I would never pay $10,000 for a patio. But that's because I'm looking at it from a standpoint of like, I can build this myself. Like I can do it way cheaper because I know how to do it. I've got the stuff. And so I'm putting my value of a project on against the homeowner's value of the project. Well, the homeowner, like with a website, like I'm willing to pay someone a lot of money to build a website because the value to me is there because I don't know how to freaking do it. And hopefully that web person respects their time because I respect their time enough to be willing to pay a premium for it. But I fell in this trap of not respecting my own time enough. And there's a lot of things too. Like early on in my company, like we weren't efficient enough. We didn't, like for a long time, we didn't own our own skid steer. So we were renting one. And that whole debacle of going to get a machine, doing it, try to get it done in the allotted amount of time, return it, and then, oh crap, we really need it tomorrow, but we don't have the budget for it. So we're going to have to 85 wheelbarrows and make it, I'm exaggerating. So the big thing is like, you've got to know your numbers with your company and know what you need to survive dollar wise, first off, and then be able to pass on jobs that aren't going to get you there. You got to have the skill level, of course. But the thing is, most guys have the skill level. It's the business acumen they lack. And you got to put so much effort into really knowing how to run a proper company, a proper business. And it's something I knew a lot of stuff because I used to study like Charles Vanderkoy, who's a huge like multiple overhead recovery system guru. He signed a book I bought from him because I'm such a dork. I mean, it's one of those things in your heart of hearts. I knew when my first company was failing. Like I knew what was wrong, but you just get so busy and just, again, that 10 million things to do, it just becomes hard to right the ship eventually. And so you got to recognize if that's what's going on in your company, you got to recognize it and figure out a way to push pause or scale back a little bit and just try to get your head above water. And just, even if it's a confidence issue, just start raising your rates slowly. Anything you got to do to get to that light, you got to do it. And it's tough, man. I've been there and it's tough, but you got to get there because you got to build a company that you can survive on, that you be proud of. And I said this the other day, so I feel like and the reason I say it, I feel like I repeat myself too much sometimes, but like when I was younger, especially, and this is one of my things, when I was 24 and even 20, a lot of guys I knew that age, or, they had lawn care businesses and they would have, they would end up having kids or get somebody pregnant or whatever. And like, well, I got rid of my lawn care company because I need to get a real business. I need to get a real job. Need to go get a real job. And I always heard that and just curled my skin and like curdled my blood because it was just like, but this is a real job. And it just lit a fire in me to like, I swear I'm going to have a real company someday that I can draw a salary off, support a family, and do some of the nice things in life with that. And it took me way too long to get there, Keith. But we finally got to where we're drawing a decent salary and can do some stuff. But it took me learning the hard way a long time. So I don't know. I think I rambled on there for a little bit. Sorry, man. But it's just, for me, it was a confidence issue. I think a lot of like just knowing my worth, like you preach a lot, and you gotta come to that realization of what you're worth. And you got to know how to get to that too. You got to know, and it's really not that hard. It's a crazy thing. You really figure out, how many man hours a year you're going to work. And generally, for in a seasonal business, if you're not plowing and everything, 1,500, 2,000 hours if you're really going nuts. And then you divide your overhead into that. You know what I mean? All your bills, that'll help you give an hourly rate. And keep the math simple. Like if you're going to work 1,000 hours this year and you need to make at least $35,000 a year. Okay, right. There's $35 an hour on your charge. You've got to have $35 an hour in there just to make your own salary. And then truck payment and your truck or whatever, or even if you don't have truck payments, you need to be banking up that cash to buy things, this revolving door of purchasing and updating your asset. And so like you take your phone bill and divide it in that 1,000 hours and your internet and all these fixed overhead costs. And so it's not super hard. It can be intimidating, but just start taking a stab at it. There's software out there that can help you do this. There's people out there that can help you do this. Invest $500 or $1,000 and somebody can help you figure these things out and you'll be all the better off for it.
One of the hard things to get over is the fear and the shame of actually having somebody look at your business and how good you're not really doing. And so, because you're afraid they're going to go, what? Yeah. What the hell are you doing?
Dude, I did a job for an accountant one time, and I know he knows I did the job too cheap. And he's like, Caleb, I'd love to help you with your business someday. And I'd love to, I'll look over your books, no charge. I'd love to help you, just see if I can help you in any way. And it was one of those things, I think he wanted to mentor me, but I was young and dumb and I knew everything. And I knew, again, in my heart of hearts, like I would embarrass myself because I knew in my heart of hearts I was not charging enough and I wasn't making any money. And I didn't let him do it. And it's one of those things, like, I believe things have got to take their course, and I wouldn't change my history or trajectory in any way because it'd put me right here on this couch right now, I believe. So it's like, yeah, if you could go back and change some things, I don't know. Everything I've learned up till now is like, got me where I'm at, and I wouldn't change anything. But at the same time, it's like, gosh, man, what would look different if I would have been open enough to be like, yeah, Scott, let's do this. And like, what would that have done? Or would I've, so it's just, you look back and you can't dwell on that stuff too much, but if somebody's willing to help you, consider it, I guess is what I'm getting at.
My good friend Joshua Latimer says that he has a PhD in pain and suffering.
Yeah. Dave Ramsey says he has a PhD in DUMB. Yeah, I get that for sure.
A PhD in
DUMB, man. That's Dave Ramsey.
So
more of today's edition of the Untrapped podcast continues right after this.
Guys, if you need help being more organized and being perceived as a professional to your clients and prospective customers, then you got to check out Jobber. Jobber is an awesome software that you can run your entire service business on. You can create invoices, quotes, estimates, work orders. It integrates with your calendar. You can collect money. You can run your whole business on Jobber and grow with it as well. Get your 14-day free trial of Jobber at keithkalfas.com/Jobber. I use Jobber in my business, and it's awesome.
The Untrapped podcast continues. Here's your host, Keith Kalfas.
So, but when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
True.
Okay, I'm ready. Like, you just know that
Sure.
you're there now. For instance, when I hired a bookkeeper to manage all my books, I started looking at what it was going to cost, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And I was like, you know what? I asked myself, because I don't like to point the finger at anybody else.
Right.
But I say, who the fuck am I becoming? Huh? Do I want to be like the people that I aspire to be like? Because if they're not doing their books or having someone in-house, then they have a bookkeeper, right? So when I finally hired a bookkeeper, and now I would never go back.
Right, yeah.
Right? And because you look at when you finally start getting P&L statements and you know what's going on in the business and you're looking at the numbers, you go, oh my God, it's all becoming clear.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that just made you money right there because you have a sense of clarity. If you don't know where you're at, that's the first and most important thing, I think, is seeing with the brutal reality of where you're at. How did you start to see where you were at in order to start making the changes?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I've never been asked that question that way. So that's interesting. I got to think about that a little bit. And I would love to know Britt, my wife's perspective on that, because her and I think it really, oh boy, Keith, it was one of those things. I was getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, I was just like so fed up with being broke all the time. But I'll tell you the one thing, man, that really began to get me like, oh, it's real now. Because for a long time, my company was like, first 4 or 5 years from like when I was a kid, 16 to like 22 probably, we were getting by. It was okay, kid money, all that kind of stuff, like I could get by. But then after that, where I started trying to be like big time contractors, what I call myself, and like try and take on projects we didn't own the right machinery for and all this stuff like that's, and having guys on payroll and trying to do all the payroll taxes myself. Guess where that, because I didn't hire a bookkeeper and things got nasty fast. And so like I ended up, long story short, getting super behind in payroll taxes and sales tax and all this junk. And eventually got to a point where I was trying to outrun my problem. I go in the wintertime, go work down on my cousin's ranch in Oklahoma. And I got a letter one time, or my sister would get my mail for me and all that stuff back home. And she would go through it. And she's like, Caleb, there's a letter here from the IRS. And the long story short was like, they say they're going to start coming to get stuff if you don't contact them. Because I just totally wrote them off forever. And, that's the symptom of like trying to run from your problems for too long, because they'll get you eventually. They'll catch up with you. And so that was kind of like actually like the great moment of reckoning of like, oh my gosh, like it's caught up with me now. Like, these chickens have come home to roost, and the tax man says, guess what? Pay up or we're coming to take stuff. And at the time I didn't really have anything to take, but it was still like from the IRS, that's scary. You know what I mean? Like, it was the first of many of those letters. I learned how to begin to like navigate those waters, because I was in a terrible mess. And like, that was the beginning of the awakening, let's say, of like, dude, life is real now. I can't run from this, and I got to figure something out. And so fortunately, Britt and I started dating right about that time, and the hierarchy, or not hierarchy, this...
Hey, wait, one more thing. You said a key indicator. It's real now, and I can't run from this
anymore.
Yeah, it's sometimes we do that. I had an old friend that said, I don't like to make tough decisions, so I wait for somebody to make the decision for me, or things get so bad or in a predicament where I'm forced to make the decision. And he was so honest about that. I was like, wow.
That's open, Yeah, that's, oh boy, that's crazy. And that's kind of, I guess, where I was like, I got it to where a decision was made for me, and then that forced me to buck up and take care of it. And and boy, that was a long road. And I'm still paying off my state taxes that I'm behind on. I got 6 more months in payments on state taxes, and federal stuff we're still ironing out, but it's mostly done. And dude, that's 10 years later, by the way. And so that's one of the reasons I share this stuff is like, if you're behind in taxes or you have issues, do the smart thing like Keith did and get someone. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but it's worth it. It'll end up making you money, and it'll save you a ton of heartache down the road. So get a bookkeeper. We're so adamant generally about hiring a professional to do something, right? Like you hire a guy to build your website. Why not hire somebody to do your books? Right?
Wait a second. Now you're talking about hiring people, and I just want to say to keep going, because I want...
Go ahead,
I used to be the guy who said, yeah, but I would get angry when I hear guys like you, successful guys like you talk.
Yeah, I understand.
And I would say, what the fuck are you telling me to just go hire somebody
I understand
when I'm sitting here trying to just go hire somebody. Right.
Yeah.
And I would hear things like that, and I would go insane. And then I would go work like 8 days in a row till like 10 o'clock at night, come home to my wife screaming at me, threatening to divorce me. And I would go like frantic, dude. It was crazy because I didn't have any control. I couldn't access It's interesting how, like, you have to have a place to live, so you have to pay rent. You have to have gas, phone, electricity. You have to have good internet to run your business, and you have to have a good cell phone with a good cell phone plan so you can run your business. You have to have a good running truck with oil changes. You have to have insurance. You have to have this. You have to. And I used to go through this whole damn thing. I'm like, oh my God, this costs so much money. Like in the beginning, and I'm not saying everybody here listening to this is in the beginning, but it seems so freaking expensive. Yeah. And then if you have dependents, you can feel like you're being squeezed through the cracks.
Sure.
Where you have no freedom, and then you just look in your eyes every day, and you're like, you have deep bags under your eyes, and you become a shell of your former self, and you become the person you always feared you would become, which is a guy who's painted himself into a corner, and then people say, well, you're spending too much money, you're living beyond your means. Like, what do you mean? I go out to eat once a month.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, look at those shoes you're wearing. And then they'll cut you down like some Dave Ramsey shit talking about, well, you need to go work 4 jobs and live in a cardboard box for 3 decades. And like, that shit pissed me off so bad that I just started like savagely pulling the work harder lever and raise the prices lever and like taking chances. But I had to be backed into a corner where I felt I had no choice. What about you?
I guess that's probably when the tax man came. That's pretty much where I was at. That was that hard iceberg of reality that finally was like, I can't run from this anymore. I need to figure out how I'm going to fix it. And
but you had all the self-limiting beliefs back then too, right?
Still, of like, we weren't charging enough for our work. And
so did you just work yourself to death for 10 years?
More or less. I just worked like crazy. And I still had like a good, like I still had like a good 20-year-old lifestyle, let's say, of like, I still traveled a little bit with my buddies on a shoestring budget. I'd get paid from a job and then take some of that money and go on a trip we'd had planned for a while, and do all that dumb stuff. But at the same time, like, I'm probably behind in my insurance, and living that dumb mid-20-year-old lifestyle with no kids, and and that's another thing too, of like, as you get older, you start to like, man, I need to get some things together here to get things together for the future, right?
Have you ever had those thoughts, but I don't want to get my life together while I'm out here with the sun beating on me, working in the dirt every day
Dude, I deal with that still. Like, it's so one of the things about when Britt and I get called into the field to go do a service job or something, or the company, if we're like, we've spent some time on some jobs, we're working on a job for 2 weeks, and dude, the company, I say this because it feels like it's not really, but dude, the company falls apart when we're out in the field, because like, and it reminds me so much, it harkens back to the days where how I got in trouble in the first place. Like, oh my God, I left the house at 6 this morning. We're pulling in at 6 again. I do not feel like returning the 7 voicemails that I've got waiting on me, or like dealing with an upset, client. And it's like, I see so it keeps me grounded to remember like what it's like to be at that level of the grind, And so, it's so tough to be owner operator. And so it reminds me of that. And I forget, I guess, where I was even going with this, but I know I totally relate to like, it's so hard to be the producer and facilitate all the stuff, nuts and bolts it takes to run the company. And I guess that's where you got to decide where you're going to go as a company. Are you going to be a guy that just works like that? Or are you going to set a goal of building something in your life? And it's going to take like crazy discipline, which is something I didn't have a lot of when in my mid-20s. And we always did good work, always did quality work. We were a good contracting business. We weren't a good business. You know what I mean? And I was just young, but I know guys that were like just had a different mentality of me that were my age, and they built some incredible companies that were profitable. And it's just the way my stubborn head had to be. I guess it's just my temperament was just how I had to be, and how my whole life has worked out the way it has, just because it's how it had to be for me, I guess. But it still didn't change the fact that ultimately, eventually, like I made the decision of like, I'm not going back to that lifestyle of trying to figure out how I'm going to pay, bills that month. And also too, I was just so in love with the industry of I'd put off paying a phone bill to buy a new string trimmer or like a new concrete saw or something like that, just because I was so in love with the business or, the actual like work. I was in love with the work and maybe not so much the business. And so, I finally really came to a point where it's like, I want to build, I'm going to build, I've always had that mentality of like, I'm going to build a company. And we finally got there, I believe. But dude, it's been with a lot of hard times, but self-inflicted hard times, because I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I wasn't like dirt level poverty either. And I had a good upbringing. I'm very blessed for that, and I count those blessings constantly. But at the same time, I managed to screw up what blessings I did have and drive them into the ground because just mismanagement and all that stuff, and I had the work ethic to overcome the short-sightedness of no financial management. So that was like a long-winded route there. But yeah, Keith, so that's, I've been all through all that stuff. So I get them like you said, of like, it's easy for me to sit here now and say, yeah, just go hire someone. Cause I get that. Like, 'cause I know the times when you don't have someone, the money to just go hire someone. You've just got to find it in yourself to figure out how you're going to make that happen if you want to get ahead in life. And it's just that, it's that complicated and it's that simple. It's just all, you've got to figure out a way to make it happen. And that's just it.
I like you really know how to dial in the way you talk about what it's like to be a contractor. You talk the language, bro. Doesn't he, Brian? Brian Fullerton here. He says yes. He says yes.
Yeah, well, I've done stupid and been stupid, and I'm not much removed from it now, but because I talk to guys going through this crap, and even at Brian's event, like a dude came up to me because I was sharing stuff about my tax issue, and he came up to me, he's like, and this is what makes it all worth it. You go out and you tell a crowd of 500 people, I've been bankrupt. That sucks. No, who would want to go say that, right? Like, hey, I'm so dumb. I went broke. I crashed a company. But like this dude came up and he's like, hey man, I got some tax issues. I'm going to get them handled. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. It makes it all worth it. Like, it's you to open yourself up like that, makes it all worth it.
Do you have mentors in your life or people around you, your Fab Five?
Yeah, totally. And I've always been blessed with one of my biggest blessings in life is to be surrounded by people that were like passionate about what they did, regardless of what it was, and good about what it was. And I was always still studying and reading like Charles Vanderkoy and Marty Grunder and Frank Mariani and Dick Ansley. And I could throw names forever of guys that like a lot of them I never even met, and they're mentors of mine. They don't even know it, kind of deal. But I still, especially in the construction and building realm, I always was talking to guys about learning to build. I love building. Like, building is in my blood. It just is what.
Say those guys' names again.
This is something I want to do someday with a series of like to introduce the social media generation to I would say like almost the founding fathers of the landscape industry. And that's Frank Mariani, Marty Grunder, Frank J. Schmidt, Charles Vanderkoy.
We got to go hunt these guys down and get them on the show.
There's so many dudes out there that like had a big influence in my life. And in my college instructors at my community college, I went to Dick Ansley and Steve O'Neill and Fred Howard. Those dudes were just passionate professionals about what they did, and I owe a lot of positive attributes to them, I guess, of like emulating what they did with their companies when they built companies and sold them or did whatever. But you've got to find guys that are where you want to be and just do your best to, with prudence, but figure out what they're doing, like you were saying earlier, and emulate that. And I do that now with guys of like where I want to be, and I see what they're doing, and I ask them, and I try to be open and ask. And fortunately, a lot of guys share their experiences, and it's good. It's good. So you got to be willing to be open and open yourself up to like, look, I'm screwing this up real bad. Can you help me? And it's tough. Some guys will say no, and other guys will, and just take that advice with a grain of salt. and do your darndest to get ahead for your sake and your posterity's sake.
I got one last question for you. We're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, bud.
Have you ever got those thoughts, or what would you say for the guys that think, but I don't want to be the guy who owns a landscaping business and I've built this whole thing. Like, imagine if they see where they're at right now and they're in a place of working their tail off and they think of owning some business that's 4 or 5 times the size, like 5 nooses around their neck, where they have no freedom in their life. Even if they did make more money doing it, how do you experience any freedom from your business where they can visualize themselves in a place where like, oh, that would actually be awesome.
Right.
If they're seeing that in a negative light and they feel like they're just building a big trap.
Right. A company is a blank book that you can write finish to beginning. And so you say, I want to end up here. I don't want to have those incredible burdens of like running a big company. You can run a company with 2 or 3 guys and yourself. It's your book. Write it how you want it. And if you don't want that and that's not your drive in life, you don't have to scale to $2 million or even $1 million for that matter. You can be plenty profitable, like Stan was talking earlier today. Like, you can be plenty profitable at $300,000 or $400,000. Make a good living. And if you're smart with it and set it aside and invest and do stuff like that, you'll set yourself up so fantastically, you'll make your head spin. So it's all about, you've got to write those chapters in that book the way you want it to be. And you have that freedom, fortunately. How you get there might be challenging and the toughest thing you've ever done in your life, but it's totally possible. Don't feel, that's a trap that I fell into of thinking with my first company of like, I have to scale. I have to hit XYZ sales, dollar, sales or whatever. You don't have to. You can be very profitable at $300,000 in sales or whatever, or even just a solo guy out mowing grass for, and you're bringing in $100,000 a year and you're netting 50 off that. Like, it's your book and you write it how you want, and don't let anybody else tell you what your business should be. It's entirely up to you. I mean, you've got to know your why. So why are you in business? Is it to work yourself to death, or is it to work yourself to death for a little while? Because that's what it takes. And then you build this machine that takes you where you want to go.
It was one of the biggest blessings. I used to plow snow for years, but I do different stuff now with the internet business. But I am full heavy on into landscaping. We do a lot of landscaping. We're booked out for 9 weeks right now. Nice. But it was going from barely being able to afford to pay my bills and hating my landscaping business to I open up a savings account, and it's called Winter Savings Account.
Sure.
Right. And we're on payroll, but I also take draws from the business too. I just balance that out and talk to my accountant. Seek your accountant's advice on that.
Absolutely.
Depending on how you file your taxes and everything. Yeah. But we pay ourselves a reasonable salary. But basically, by the time the winter comes, when I finally said, oh my God, if I wanted to, I could literally just sit around on my ass and watch Netflix all winter and do nothing until springtime, because I have enough money budgeted out to pay all the bills for Christmas, for everything. Right. And obviously you wouldn't do that. But I think when you get like to that level, once you start having some money where you can go on a vacation or two and you can experience the freedom of the business, when you get over that first or second hump, you start to reap the benefits.
Sure.
And have you been able to reap those benefits?
We have. And we've, from 10 years ago, we were always super frugal. Like, we got kind of, funny you mentioned the Dave Ramsey thing, but like, we got super into the Dave Ramsey thing, and we ate, slept, and breathed it, from cleaning up my old mess. And like, Britt came into the picture, like, right pretty much when the tax man started coming after me. And it's this archetype, and I heard it so well from Jordan Peterson, a guy I just love what he has to say about anything. But a lot of Disney movies follow these archetypes of like the script or the plot. And so Beauty and the Beast, right? Beautiful young woman comes and rescues this monster and turns him into a gentleman, right? And so like Britt's kind of like this archetype, this overall archetype of generally like a woman will come into your life and straighten you out, thank God. And like, that's what happened to me. And like, Britt helped me get my shit together ultimately. And like, without her, who knows, I may be back to a second crash company at this point. Who knows?
Dude, that's my wife too.
I know, from what I've heard, I understand that. And it follows those archetypes, right? So I just thought that was just an interesting correlation of like, the reason people like those movies is because they follow these themes that are so prevalent we don't even know it,
My wife has this keen ability to spot out any little unconscious thing I have that I'm not aware of, even down to a nervous tick. She can pull it out and show it to me, and I'll try to stick my head in the sand on it, and she'll just hold it there until I see the light. And I've become so much better for it. And bro, I'd love to have you back on the show sometime.
I'd be flattered.
As soon as I can get my way into Ohio, which should be pretty soon here, we're going to show up to the company, shoot a vlog, and have you on the channel.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
How can people check you out?
All our social media handles, everything is at Auman Landscape, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, you name it.
Bro, you are a gem. Thanks for being on the Untrapped podcast. Go to keithkalfas.com/podcast. You can find us on any major platform. We just hit top 100 in entrepreneurship on Apple. If you like the show, go there and show it by leaving us a well-worded positive 5-star review. It really helps the show out. It'll take you 90 seconds. Go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a well-worded positive 5-star review. And I'll see you on the next show. Right now we're releasing shows every Monday. We're going to pump it up to 2 times a week soon. See you later, guys.